All right. Hello. Welcome back, class. Today is day 2 of our muscular system. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. You should be in our Google Classroom on the November 9th slides. So Tuesday, we talk about the muscular system, day 2. Click here for your assignment. Make sure you answer my do now question. Take some notes. We are going to have a test on Friday. So here's your do now question. Let me get to the right slide. Right here. Okay, so do now. Without looking at your notes or looking through these slideshow, explain 3 things you learned about your muscles. So what 3 things did you learn about your muscles yesterday? I'll give you guys some time. Okay, so maybe you're thinking about how many muscles we have. Number 650, maybe you're thinking about what connects muscles to bones, your tendons. Maybe you're thinking about the names of muscles. Maybe the 3 types of muscles. We talked about skeletal, smooth muscles, your cardiac muscle. And where skeletal muscles, obviously what we're focusing on is on your bones. That lets you move. Smooth muscles are on your organs. That lets you literally live without having to think about it. And then your cardiac muscles, your heart. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move on. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about injuries. So one of the basic injuries is tendon injuries. If you've ever heard of tendinitis, remember last week I told you this word itis means inflammation of. So if someone had arthritis, their joints are inflamed, right? Any joint, anywhere it moves in your body. Tendinitis is when your tendon is inflamed. Very similar, right? Because it's pretty much in the same area where that joint is. So tendinitis means inflammation of the tendon. Tendinosis means there's little tears in that tissue. Think of like your muscles and your tendons as like a piece of steak, right? And if I take forks and I just start shredding it, say I like boil that steak or whatever I did to it, and I start shredding it, okay? Think like if you ever have injuries, that's like the tissue and it's just starting to get shredded off. So little shreds are called tendinosis. If that's something that people aren't like listening to their body, or they're still doing some crazy hard workout, or maybe that's part of their job and that it's just slowly shredding, well, eventually it could just shred to where it can completely tear. And we'll talk about that in a second. A lot of times what people do for tendinitis, mostly like when it comes to any type of arthritis, you might take ibuprofen or something to help with the inflammation. You might ice it. A lot of people put like biofreeze. If it gets really bad, you might want to go see the doctor, and they might be able to do an MRI and see how badly it's torn and what they need to do from there. Okay, so these pictures just show you like different types of tendinitis in your different areas. All right. Oh, here's some pictures. Okay, so this shows you in someone's ankle, right? That is a tendon that obviously they're surgically repairing. Okay, so if you look down here, so I guess it's not the Achilles, but it's the tendon that connects your lower leg bone to your foot to allow your foot to bend back and forth, right? So if you see right here, that's what they're repairing. That is a tendon. So he has his big muscle right here, and then he has to hook that tendon to the bottom of his foot so his foot can actually bend. This just shows you guys, like those are your tendons right here. They're cords of tough tissue, right? That tendon is what's hooked to a big arm muscle right here, and it's hooked to your carpals, your wrist, and that's what lets you bend your wrist back and forth. So if these tendons are completely torn, they're going to have to go in just like this and surgically repair that. Okay, have you ever heard of something called tennis elbow? It's called tennis elbow because a long time ago, a lot of people who played tennis, you got to think this type of movement, they would come in with injuries. But I mean, anyone could get tennis elbow. I don't have to play tennis to get it. Maybe I work outside like a jackhammer, and I'm constantly have that movement, right? Maybe I'm a hairdresser and I'm constantly like blow drying people's hair, right? So it's just anything where your elbow's being used a lot. So a lot of times people have tennis elbows. So as you guys can see right here, it's like a little tear. That's tendinosis, a little tear in those muscles, right? If it fully tears, what did I tell you? You're going to have surgery, okay? Because that muscle is not going to hook to that bone anymore, and you're not able to move that bone, okay? That joint, that elbow's not going to be able to move. So they'll go in there and they'll repair it. And that's what this picture is showing. They'll have to go in and literally surgically repair that tendon and hook it right back to the bone. All right, next one. Okay, so here's an Achilles tendon rupture. Up here in the x-ray, this shows you guys it is completely ruptured, okay? This just shows you it's not snapped all the way off, but it's pretty much happening. What this means is, if you guys ever like know those old school window shades where when you pull them down and then you let go and they roll back up, that's literally what happens when you have an Achilles tendon rupture. So if you guys feel behind your ankles right now, you feel that hard cord, that's your Achilles tendon. That's what's hooked to your bottom, your calf muscle. And then it stretches all the way down, and then it hooks to your heel, and that's what lets you move your foot back and forth. I told you a lot of scary movies you see where they cut their ankles and they can't walk. Well, it's true. If this literally gets cut in half, it like folds up like a window shade. And then some people like feel like they have a big ball in the back of their calf and they can't move it. It's very painful. They'll have to go in surgically, hook that back together. If you see over here on the bottom, this left foot obviously has an Achilles tendon rupture. As you see, it's so swollen compared to the right foot. Look at their Achilles tendon, nice and intact. You can't see it here because it is all swollen and it probably balled up in the back of their leg. So someone who's had that rupture, surgery, and months of physical therapy. Oh, so here's some more pictures. Sorry, I didn't warn some of y'all. So here's your Achilles tendon. All right. So as you can see, it is torn. It is shredded. They might be able to fix it with their own. They might use cadaver tendons to hook that back in place. So that just shows you, here's your gastrocnemius, your soleus muscle, right? And that big cord that I said you could feel right now in the back of your leg, that's your Achilles tendon. So if I cut it or rupture it, it could roll right back on up and I can't move my ankle. And this just shows you this one's completely torn. They're in there fixing that. And this shows you the aftermath. It'll just be a nice little possible scar and then months of PT to get the muscle back to where it needs to be. All right, this is called bursitis. So remember, itis means inflammation of. Well, you say, what's burst? These are your bursa sacs on your knees and your elbows. It's like you guys have like knee pads and elbow pads. We have extra cushion there, right? So this cushion, it's a small sac of fluid. It cushions and lubricates those areas where tissues, including bones, tendons, ligaments, that they rub against each other. So you got to think your elbows, your knees constantly bending, like you have stuff constantly rubbing on each other. So it's like our body has this bursa sac to pretty much help cushion it. Well, sometimes these bursa sacs can get injured, inflamed, or ruptured. Maybe I had one girl when she played soccer for me, another girl, they were playing in a game and both their knees hit each other, right? Well, her knee just blew up like a balloon, similar to this guy's right here. And it blew up like a balloon. Well, I mean, what do you do if it's inflamed? You rest it, you wait it out. She took ibuprofen. Well, then if it doesn't go down on its own, there could be some bleeding, that bursa sac, there could have been some bleeding. So you might have to go to the doctor and they'll go in with a needle and suck out whatever's in there. And that bursa sac will then go back down to normal. So that could be a possibility. All right, moving on. Okay, carpal tunnel syndrome. So carpal tunnel syndromes, obviously it happens your carpals. Your carpals are your wrists. Remember, those are gliding bone joints, right? They're in your wrist. You have not just muscles and tendons and ligaments and all this stuff, but obviously remember you have nerves. Nerves is what makes you feel feeling. A lot of people who have carpal tunnel will say they feel like numbness, their hands get weak. It's not just arthritis pain, but they feel like numb. Well, think if you like grab your wrist here and just hold it tight, eventually I might start feeling some tingling in my fingers. Well, we have a band, right? A band right here, these tendons right here. Okay, it literally is holding all of our nerves and stuff intact. Well, someone who has carpal tunnel, they probably use their wrists a lot of hairdressers, a lot of clerical workers, even sometimes surgeons, right? Just someone who's constantly using their hands, making that movement. Sign language interpreters are known to have carpal tunnel. Because you think that band, it's just a lot of overuse, it gets inflamed. But when it gets inflamed, it like gets tighter and tighter and tighter. When it gets tighter and tighter, it starts squeezing those nerves, and those nerves is what lets you feel sensations, right? A lot of times, people with carpal tunnel syndrome, it's more of just like arthritis. You could suffer through the pain, maybe take ibuprofen. A lot of people wear like wrist guards. People who type, they get those keyboards that make their hands go different directions. So there's different ways you can help take care of some of the pain. Last choice, people could have carpal tunnel surgery. My wife had carpal tunnel surgery a few years ago because she works a lot of clerical and she was just in pain, even holding like a screwdriver or a hammer. Eventually, she's like, my hand hurt so bad, it hurt. So she had carpal tunnel surgery. I don't have a picture of it. No. So what they did was they cut here, right? They cut in here, and it's like they loosened that band. They loosened that band, and then they stitched her back up, right? All right, moving on. Okay, so what's a strain versus a sprain? A sprain is when you stretch your ligaments. So if you're walking and you go with your ankle, you sprain the ligaments that connect the bones, right? A strain is when your muscles are stretched or torn. Okay, your tendons, your muscles. So I told you it's like that piece of meat and I'm just shredding it. Okay, it's like I'm straining it. Well, if you keep shredding, that strain here in a second, I'll show you, turns into a torn muscle. So this shows you this muscle tissue is just being shredded. Okay, so if you have an injuries here, here's someone's back of their leg. This is their hamstring. So if someone's not stretching right or taking care of themselves right, they have an injury, and it's just like slowly just tearing away, and that does no one takes care of it, and they eventually get it completely torn. Now you're in some serious issues, and this is what we're talking about. This is torn muscle. So this guy tore, looks like his bicep muscle, and this guy obviously tore his pectoral muscle. And it could be anything. Maybe, like I said, just overuse, or they had a little bit of a tear and they didn't focus on it, or they just kept doing what they felt like they could do. So these pictures up top shows like a grade 1 tear. You might feel like, oh, it hurts a little bit. Then a grade 2 tear, and then it's just completely torn. If you have a completely torn muscle, that's surgery. They got to go in and repair that. A torn muscle, man, that could take months to recover from. I had one of my girls played soccer for me years ago. She tore her hamstring muscle. She was here grade 1, and I kept telling her rest, ice. Then she's like, oh, I'm okay. And she kept pushing through, and eventually completely torn. She was out for that whole season. Just so long of a recovery. When you tear your muscle, you see, why does it get all colorish like that, bluish, purplish? Because you got to think you have blood vessels everywhere. In your muscle, your blood vessels, because when you guys eat healthy foods, especially like proteins, when we talk about that nutrient helps your muscles, well, you got blood in there, right? So if you tear it, it's like your blood vessels going like, type of alert, and they want to go there and help. That's why it looks purplish. It's like a bruising, pulling of blood there. All right. Here's some more pictures of torn muscles. So this guy, man, he is hurting. He is in serious trouble there. He might have lifted way too much. It looks like he's a lifter, a bodybuilder. He must have lifted way too much, right? That his body could handle. This right here is a tear in your, so this is like close to your pectoral muscle, right? It's called your subscapularius muscle. So your scapula is like your back, your shoulder, right? So you have your subscapular muscle that hooks, that pretty much like helps you guys do the arm movement up top. So as you guys can see here, that tendon's being torn. If you hear someone had like a rotator cuff surgery, you just saw a lot of baseball pitchers. That's probably one of the tears. I think they're constantly making that movement. Well, eventually it could tear. Here's just a hamstring tear. That's what my girl started off with. And eventually it just got bigger, and then she fully tore it. This is a hip labral tear. I've had a few of my soccer girls, and I keep saying soccer, but we have a lot of hip injuries because we use a lot of our lower body. So this is your pelvis, right? And here's the head of your femur. It's a ball and socket. It goes in there, and it lets you guys roll around. That's why you guys can move your legs, right? Well, there's a little bitty tear right here. It's called your labrum. I just had one of my girls who just had surgery actually a few months ago just to fix that little tear. That little tear totally affected the way she could move her leg and was in pain. Just that little bitty tear. So that is a surgery type of fix. All right, so how can we strengthen our muscles? Go ahead and write this down. One, you got to exercise, right? And I'm not saying you got to go run miles and go lift weights. I'm saying just go do something active. You like to play tennis? Go play tennis. You want to go walk your dog? Go walk your dog. If you want to go put on like a fitness video, put on a fitness video. If you want to go join a sport, but exercise. Cross training is really important. What that means is like, don't do the same thing over and over and over. If you're a runner, don't just always run. You want to like do different things in your workout. Like my soccer players, we don't just run all the time. Obviously, we do long distance running, we do sprints, but we do a lot of strength training. We do different types of things to work out our bodies. We do yoga. We do a lot of stuff, right? That's called cross training. Obviously, rest your injuries. Now, I know it's hard to do this as athletes, especially, and even as a coach, it's like, I need you. But if you don't rest your injuries, your body doesn't have time to take care of itself. Okay, and when I say rest your injuries too, like make sure you're eating right. Make sure you're feeding your body the right nutrients to help those injuries get better faster. And then ice when needed, all right? Ice can help just soothe it, calm down inflammation areas. All right, so here we go. In your notes, last 3 questions for today. I want you guys to answer these questions. How are you personally, how are you strengthening your muscles? What muscle groups do you want to focus on? Maybe you're like, I need to focus on my core because I have a lot of back problems, or I want to focus on my upper body, or I want to focus on lower body. What do you want to focus on? Maybe your cardiac muscle, you want to focus on your cardio because you might get so tired just walking up and down stairs. So you want to focus on your cardio. And then tell me, how strong is your cardiac muscle? Can you hang? If I say, hey, we're going to go run a mile and we get to PE class, can you hang? A mile is about 17 laps around a basketball court, 4 laps around a track. So when you think about that, like, can you do that? If I say, hey, we're going to jump rope for 2 minutes straight, can you do that? So it tells you how strong your cardiac muscle is. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get back where I can see y'all. So today we talked a lot about muscle injuries. We talked about how to take care of our muscles and why our muscles are important for us. Without our muscles, we wouldn't be able to move our bones, right? So we got to start taking care of our muscles. One of the nutrients that really helps our muscles is protein, obviously, right? So just make sure you guys are eating healthy, exercising, stretching. If you don't stretch before you start to work out, you're more likely to hurt yourself because your muscles are really, really tight. And if you just start working out, you could quickly tear them. So when you work out and do like a little stretch, it like loosens them and then it's easier for them to do the workout. So make sure you guys always stretch and warm up before you jump into a workout. So if you guys have any questions, just holler at me and I'll see you guys later. Bye.